Okay, guys, so this is section 1.4, solving equations with variables on both sides. And so we saw this at the end of the last lesson where we had a 4x on one side, a 6x on one side, and we had to get those together somehow. The thing you have to remember is that when you have things on both sides of the equal sign, you can't just put those together. Think about the equal sign like being a river or an ocean. And you can't just put things together across the ocean. You have to move from one side to the other. Okay, and I'm going to show you a little graphic in a few minutes. It's going to help with that. All right, so here we go. So the techniques that we're using today, we're still on the same one. We're still solving equations, okay? But this time we're adding the last piece. So you already should be able to simplify and solve multi-step equations that require distributive property. Now we're going to add when variables are on both sides, okay? So your goal is to isolate the variable. I know you guys are getting tired of hearing that, but it's the same thing. We're still just trying to get that variable by itself to find out what x is equal to. We're working on one side of the equal sign. We're simplifying. Remember the steps. The order we do this is we distribute first, then we combine like terms, then we get into solving. When you solve, you're moving stuff across the equal side. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. And then you're going to move all the variables to one side and all the constants to the other side. Remember, a constant are your numbers, the numbers by themselves. The variables are the letters. So I want to get all my x's on one side and all my numbers on the other side, okay? So here's an example. So this is my algebra island. On this island, I've got 16m. Here's my equal sign. That's an ocean. And on this side, I've got 45 plus 11m. I want to be able to get those m's together. So which one would have to get on my boat to get across the ocean? Would the 16m need to get on a boat to come over here? Or the 11m want to get on a boat and come over here? Well, you got to think logically. If I'm trying to get all the m's on one island, and I'm trying to get my numbers on one island, on the other island, which one is the easiest move? Well, it would be to move the 11m. I want him to come over here. Then I'd have m's on the left island and 45 by himself. Well, how do I move him over there? I can't just say, just put them together. We get on the boat. So if you have positive 11m, you subtract that, right? Do the opposite. Now, when I do that, cancel on this side. 16m minus 11m gives me 5 m's. And the other side, I got 45. And now I have all my m's on one side and all my numbers on the other side. Now, that is the step of doing variables on both sides. That's it. And then you keep solving. So you know how to solve this. It's a one-step equation. We've been doing this for 4 lessons. So you divide by 5, and you get x is equal to 9. So this right here is the only new step. It's trying to get that variables on the same side, okay? Now, you're going to have to choose which one to move. I'm going to work this both ways, and I'm going to show you why it's important to think logically when you're moving this x. So let's work the left side. I'm going to work it one way, and I'm going to work it the other way on the right. So on the left, if I decide to move this 2x, I can do that. Okay, let me draw my line. Okay, so here's my line. So if I move that 2x, now it looks like this, right? 4x minus 2x is 2x. Then I have to subtract 10. And I have to divide by 2. How many steps was that? It was 1, 2, 3 steps. If I chose to move the 2. Now let's look over here and see how many steps it takes if I move the 4. So I minus the 4x. And then I divide by negative 2. Which one was faster? This was 3 steps. This was 2 steps. So it doesn't matter. If Johnny worked it this way and Sally worked it this way, they are both right. But it took Sally less time. So you want to think logically and pick the right way to do that. All right? So here we go. So let's try this one. So draw your line down the middle. Write down the problem and draw your line down the middle. Remember, you can always stop this video. You can pause it if I start going too fast. All right, so now, which one is a smart move? Would I want to move the 2k over or the negative 8k over? Well, if I'm trying to get k's away from this guy, and I'm trying to get k's on the same side, it would be this one. And so I'm going to add 8k to both sides. Then we're going to divide by 10. Now k is by itself. Okay? All right, let's try this one. Now you got variables and numbers on both sides. But we're going to move the variables first. So what's the smartest move? Do I want to move the negative d or the 7d? Well, I chose to move the d because by doing this, the way it helps me is now I'm going to have a positive number here instead of a negative. If I went the other way, I would have a negative number on this side, and I don't want that. So I'm going to bring down that 3, bring down my equal sign. 7 plus 1 is 8, and then there's 27. Now we have a two-step equation. Remember, what's the first step? Yep, get rid of the other friend. Remember, we don't kick our best friend out first. This guy can stay for a while. This guy's got to go. We always add or subtract first. I'm going to subtract 27. And then I'm going to divide by 8. I'm kind of speeding up the process of solving these 1- and 2-step equations that we did in the first and second lesson. Because as we're practicing, you're going to be getting better and better at this. Keep working at it. If I go too fast, pause the video, get caught up, make sure that you're slowing down your thinking enough that you can follow what's happening and understand what's happening. Okay? Just writing notes to just write notes is not helping you. Okay, so here we go. So now we have multi-step equations with it. So I have an f on this side and I have 2f on this side. But I can't just move them together. See, he's trapped in these parentheses. I got to get him out before I can move him. And so we're going to follow those same steps we've been doing the whole time. You always do the same steps. Distributive property. Combine like terms. Move the variables if you got variables on both sides. And then solve your two-step equation. And so the first thing I see is I have a distributive property here. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute first. 3 times f is 3f. 3 times 7 is 21. Now, I can't combine like terms. But I have an f on this side and f on this side. So I'm going to move him and get him over here, right? Because if I can get him on this side, I have my f's on one side and 21 by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3f from both sides. 2 minus 3 is negative 1, right? And then I'm going to divide by negative 1. Okay? All right, let's try this one. Now, when you have variables on both sides, something weird can happen. All right? Something weird can happen. As you're solving this, I'm going to go ahead and solve it before I show you my little trick. But as I'm solving this, look, I've got 5c here and 5c here. As I'm solving this, I say, well, I want to get that c on that side. That cancels. I want to get that c on that side. That cancels. Well, how are you going to solve for c if you don't have a c? So when that happens and your variables cancel out, one of two things happens. It either means that you have no solutions, meaning that, well, c doesn't have any numbers that will work. Or you have all real numbers, and that means that every number will work. Okay? The way you can tell, if when you're done, if what you have left is true, then it's all real numbers. If what you have is false, then it's no solutions. Okay? So what do we have when we did ours? Did we have, was it a true statement or a false statement? In other words, is 1 equal to negative 1? Is that true or false? Well, obviously that's false. 1 does not equal negative 1. So if it's false, that means we have no solutions. That means it doesn't matter what number you put in there, it's not going to work. If I put 0 in here, then I'm going to have 1 equal negative 1. That's not true. If I make c be 1, well, that'd be 5 plus 1 is 6, and negative 1 plus 5 is 4. Well, that's not true either. So no numbers I put in for c are going to work. I can't make it work, so there's no solutions. So let's see the next example. Same thing's going to be true. And so when I get rid of that 2x, they cancel on both sides. What do I have that's left? Well, I have negative 7 equal negative 7. Is that true or false? Well, that's true, right? Negative 7 does equal negative 7. And so that means it's going to be all real numbers. Okay, so this is one of those multiply things. You have to multiply. I mean, you have to remember. This is one of those remember things. You have to remember. When I am solving, and I have variables on both sides, if my variables cancel and my statement is true, what does that mean? All real numbers. If my statement is false, what does it mean? No solutions. You're going to see this pop back up throughout the year, so you need to memorize that as soon as possible. Okay, last thing we need to do, we got to talk about word problems are going to be throughout. So remember, use your highlighter, go step by step, use my strategies. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read this word problem all the way through. 4 times the number increased by 25 is 13 less than 6 times the number. And it wants me to write and solve. So if you try to do that all at once in your head, you're going to get frustrated. You're not going to be able to do it. So what I want you to do is take your time, and I want you to work on one number at a time. One of my strategies is that I can come up here and I can highlight as I'm doing it. So I can say one word at a time. So how do I translate 4? Oh, that's number 4. That's easy, right? Well, then I've got times a number. Let's just do times. How do I do times? Let's multiply. A number. Do I know what that number is? No, that's why they didn't tell me. If I knew the number was 10, they would say 10. I don't know what the number is. So what do we call a number that we don't know what the value is? Well, we call that a letter. So let's give it a name. Let's call it X. Increase by. Increase by. What do you think that means? Well, if you increase, you're adding to it, right? So that'd be plus. 25 is already a number. What do you say is? When you see this is, it's a separator. That's equals. 13? Yeah, 13. But be careful because it says 13 less than. Remember, we talked about that earlier. That means minus 13. If I've got $13 less than you and you've got 20, 20 minus 13 is 7. I had to minus 13. The next one we have is 6 times the number. It's still talking about this same guy over here, right? So now that I have it translated, you want it to look mathy, right? And so to make it look mathy, you just put it in the order that we like to work with stuff. So I just rewrite it and say, well, it's 4 times X. I can say 4X plus 25 equals, and then this is all messy, so I just did 6 times X minus 13. 13 less than 6 times a number, right? So that's how I did that. So if you will break down those word problems the way I just did, use your highlighter, go one word at a time and translate it, then it will start to make sense. You'll get better and better at word problems, okay? Everything in math is a strategy. It's a trick. And so if you'll follow these strategies I'm telling you, because I was the same way as most freshmen are when I was a freshman in high school. I had the same struggles everybody else did, and I found ways to make it to where I could learn better. And so these are some of the things that I'm sharing to you that work for me. And so try these strategies and see if they work for you. Now, we're not done because we wrote the equation, but now we need to solve this guy, right? And so what do I do to solve this? Well, when I look on this side, when I look over on, where's my pen? If I look over here on this side, there's nothing I can do. I can't combine like terms or do distributive property. I can't combine like terms, can't do distributive property. So now I need to try to solve it. Well, I can't solve it yet because I got variables on both sides. Which one you want to move, the 4 or the 6? Well, you can move either one, but if you move the 4, you won't have a negative number. I got 6x minus 4x is 2x. Now you have a 2-step equation. Remember, you always add or subtract first. So add 13. Then you divide and multiply last. So divide. Okay? Okay, so that's it for today. We had a much shorter one. You guys, you got to practice. Got to practice. So you need to complete your Canvas practice. Remember, you have the key there. Tutorials are 4 to 4:30 online. And so if you click on the Zoom, the little card at the bottom of my homepage at 4 o'clock, you'll be able to come into my Zoom meeting. come with questions to ask. All right, and then we can work through it. After you finish your practice, make sure you do your STAR checkout and your ticket out the door. Those are things that are going to help you further your understanding and prepare you for the test. So our first test is Unit 1A, and it's coming up. I'll be giving information about the reviews and stuff. I want to test you guys over all the solving. And so we're going to give you guys some time in the review when I open it up in Canvas that you can go through and work a review and then get ready for that test. All right. So have a good day. Make sure you work hard. Make sure you do the things that you need to do to be successful. All right. You guys have a great day.